presents The Great and Secret Show.
My name is Joseph Weber, a failed actor turned talent agent. I'm always looking for new faces, someone with real talent to pay my bills. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm a scumbag. It's this business. It chews you up and spits you out. If I can find a new hot star before someone else can, you better believe I'll do whatever it takes to sign the act. Unfortunately for me and my greed, I wish I'd never heard the name Alucard and the Great and Secret Show. My car had broken down and landed me in some podunk town 3 hours from Chicago, Kewanee, Illinois. I shacked up in a crummy room at a boarding house and decided to go for a walk. The carnival was in town for Hog Days. That's what the locals here call it. I chuckled to myself. I don't mean to sound like a snob, but the carnival is the lowest form of entertainment. I actually hate them, but what else was I going to do in this one-horse town?
Up win a prize, got a winner every time. How about you, boy?
I walked around for a while, unamused by all the lights and sounds. It was actually giving me a headache. I was about to leave when an odd-looking tent caught my eye. It was covered in black and red stripes, and looked out of place from all the other modern rides. Above the entrance was a brightly lit banner. It read Alucard and the Great and Secret Show.
Come one, come all, to the greatest show on earth! His illusions will defy reality! You'll be mesmerized by his conjuring! Come inside and see Alucard and the Great and Secret Show!
I listened to the dwarf-sized man make his spiel. Then I gave the lady covered in snake tattoos my $3, and I pushed myself inside the crowded tent. When I got inside, several people had already taken their seats. My eyes strained to focus amongst the poor lighting and cigar smoke collecting inside the tent. The stage was painted blood red and had numerous props already in place. I didn't notice anything I hadn't already seen before in other 2-bit magician acts, so I nabbed a seat up front and waited for the show to start. After a while, I grew restless and began shuffling my shoe over some old peanut shells that had been discarded in the grass below my seat, when I noticed a younger woman approaching me. She was small and delicate-featured, pretty in a flawed, accessible way. I couldn't help but admire her low-cut dress as she shuffled by and took the seat next to mine. Good evening.
Evening.
I lingered, hoping she would say something more, but she didn't. She sat forward, blankly staring at the stage. I looked around and then back at her. She stood out like a sore thumb. Are you waiting for someone?
No.
Ah, you're a fan of magic.
No, sir. Not particularly.
I'm sorry, am I bothering you?
No, I'm just tired. Tired of all of this.
The circus? I thought I was the only stick in the mud around here.
I just wish I could leave.
I'm sorry, I don't follow. I was intrigued by the mysterious woman next to me and wanted to inquire more, but we were interrupted when Alucard stepped out onto the stage. It was rather uneventful. Usually they would have some big unveiling or a curtain drop, but not for Mr. Alucard. He wore a dingy red suit and a long gray beard. On his head, a red and white striped top hat. I wondered if a bunny were inside gnawing at his head. After an uncomfortable amount of silence, he gargled out some words.
I am Alucard. Welcome to my great and secret show. For my first trick, the linking rings. Watch as I pass these solid rings through one another.
I sat and watched this frail old man perform a trick I was bored with in the 5th grade. What a joke. I was almost tempted to get up and leave. After his ring trick and some predictable card magic, the crowd felt the same as I and began to turn on the old man.
Yeah, show us some real magic!
Real magic? You want to see some real magic? Fine. I can see you people are more sophisticated. You want to see a real show.
The tent grew a slight chill as the old man looked crazy-eyed at the restless crowd. He clutched his deck of cards in hand, and then it happened. I can't explain what happened, but he was gone. The deck of cards fell to the ground, and Alucard had vanished right before our eyes. No curtains or veils. He simply disappeared in plain sight. I had never seen anyone perform such an act. I looked around, and everyone was as baffled as I was.
Ta-da!
His voice was startling as it echoed throughout the tent. We all turned to see him standing by the entrance door, a crazed smile on his face. The crowd burst into applause as he ran back onto the stage.
Was that to your liking? How about another timeless classic, folks? I shall saw someone in half. All I need is a volunteer from the audience, yes.
Everyone in the tent lunged out of their seats, begging for a chance to join Alucard on stage.
How about
He
you?
glanced over the crowd and picked the woman sitting next to me. Her hand wasn't even raised. She stood slowly from her seat, as if she didn't want to. Alucard offered his hand and helped her onto the stage.
What's your name, madam?
Eve.
Eve, such a beautiful name. Have you ever been sawed in half before, Eve?
No.
Of course not. Here, just lay back on this table.
Okay.
Now I know a crowd as worldly as you have all seen this gag before. You're thinking, I'm gonna put her in a little box and she's gonna scrunch her feet up in one side while I pretend to cut her in half. Well, not tonight. I'm gonna do things a little differently. A special occasion for such a lovely crowd.
Alucard walked off stage and returned with a chainsaw. Immediately, the horde of men and women were uneased.
Let's see if you've seen this trick before.
The frail old man dangled the chainsaw over the young woman's torso. I gritted my teeth in anxiety. What was this supposed magician up to? Before I could answer that question, he brought the blade down into her stomach, spraying the audience in blood. The woman let out the most wretched scream I'd ever heard as the teeth poured through her body. The crowd gasped in horror as this woman was severed in half right before their very eyes. Her warm entrails spilled over the table and onto the floor. She was dead, and the audience became an unruly mob.
Stay where you are!
He held the chainsaw out, pointing the bloody blade toward the crowd as they closed in on the stage.
My trick isn't over!
Alucard snatched up a long red veil and covered the woman's lifeless body. The crowd now wanted his blood. The man next to me was vomiting on the floor. For the first time, I felt fear crawl down my spine like a cold spider. Surreal. What was this lunatic going to do next? Someone had to get that chainsaw from him.
What's the magic words? Abracadabra!
He pulled the sheet from the woman. The audience silence was deafening. Every man and woman's mouth dropped. Eve sat up and looked around. The woman who everyone just saw gruesomely chopped in half was alive and staring confused at the crowd. She looked like she just woke up from surgery and was dazed from the anesthetic.
Well, say something to them.
You brought me back.
Yes, dear, smile. You were just part of one of the greatest illusions known to man. Now please, everyone, sit down. I assure you the lady is right as rain. Everyone, a round of applause for our assistant, yes.
Again, Alucard took the girl's hand and helped her off stage. The crowd looked at her in bewilderment, as if she had risen from the grave, and maybe she had. They all took turns looking her up and down as she fumbled back to her seat.
That was amazing. How did he cut you in half?
I don't know.
Look, lady, it's obvious you're in on the gag. You're a plant, right?
No, I don't know, Mr. Alucard.
You're not fooling me. I'm in show business myself. That trick, even though a bit morbid, could fetch a pretty penny.
Well, folks, I think you've all had enough of my tricks for one night. I think everyone will agree you've gotten your money's worth. So please, everyone, leave.
The crowd slowly dispersed after Alucard disappeared backstage. I turned to the girl and she too had snuck away. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck still standing. After the show, I found myself back outside, amongst the carnival goers. I looked at the oblivious families and children playing innocent games and riding the bright and flashy rides. I too felt like I was still on a ride, disoriented from Alucard's roller coaster of thrills and chills. I couldn't shake what I saw, but the greed in me knew I had to find him. I had to book him. He deserved the eyes of millions instead of the drunks and dregs of this tiny washed-up carnival. I went looking for Alucard. I made my way through the maze of painted trailers that were home to the carny people. Suddenly the door to one flew open and a woman stepped out, a scraggly beard covering her chin.
What do you want?
I'm looking for Alucard.
Alucard? Why?
I'm a talent agent from Chicago. I'd like to speak with him.
Agent?
Yes, Joseph Weber, Miss...
Beatrice. It's on the poster?
Yes, of course.
Why don't you go away? Go home. Agents are no good for us. Leave Alucard alone.
Why? What's the big deal with me seeing Alucard?
Magicians are a dime a dozen. You don't need him.
I disagree. I've never seen anything like his act. It was unreal.
Forget your curiosities and go home. Now.
The bearded lady had left me angry. It was none of her business anyway. Probably just jealous. I roamed through the trailers with my Zippo lighting the way. Finally, I found Alucard's trailer. A small aluminum antique set apart from the others. The trailer was completely dark.
Alucard!
Who is it?
Joseph Weber, I'd like to speak with you.
What do you want?
I'm an agent. I'd like to see you.
Yes?
I just caught your show. It blew my mind.
Really? My amateur tricks? I thought you were bored.
No, not at all. I'd like to do business with you. My office can get you on several networks, maybe even some nightclubs.
Nightclubs? I never play nightclubs.
Can I come in, explain my setup?
I don't mean to sound rude, sir, but I'm not interested in any offer you have to make.
I could get you $1,000 a week, maybe more with an act like yours.
I'm not interested in your money.
Please, can you tell me why you want to work for pennies at some 2-bit freak show when you could be making real money?
You don't want to know the answer to that, boy. Now I suggest you leave me alone.
You could be one of the most famous magicians of all time. Listen to me.
The highest form of vanity is a man's love for fame. Now good night, Mr. Weber.
I guess I should have forgotten all about Mr. Alucard and his great secret show. But I never take no for an answer. I knew there was money behind that strange man, lots of it, and I wasn't going to let someone else jump on that gravy train. There was also something about his reluctance that didn't add up. As I walked back toward the carnival and the bright lights, a figure stepped out from one of the darkened trailers.
So you had to see him.
Oh, you. Yeah, I saw him.
Are you satisfied?
Not at all.
Just more curious.
Well, yeah, I suppose so.
Only fools poke their noses into other people's business, and only fools get themselves and others into trouble.
Trouble? I only offered the man a good-paying job, unlike this poor excuse of a carnival. He could be one of the best.
Alucard cannot leave this carnival.
Why?
You don't know, and you don't need to know, Mr. Weber.
Know what?
Stop asking idiotic questions. Your curiosity can do a great deal of harm. Now, if you try to see Alucard again, you are a fool.
I went back to my room and drank myself to sleep. The next morning I couldn't stop thinking about Alucard's act. How did he cut that woman in half? I saw the blood shower the entire front row. I also couldn't stop thinking about the money. I took a cab to the carnival grounds on the edge of town. It was late in the evening as I came up to the dingy booths and tents. I made my way through the crowd and to the trailers where I hoped I wouldn't run into the bearded lady again. Unfortunately, I was spotted by another man. He appeared drunk as he approached me.
Agent man. Agent man. Agent man.
What?
I'm the knife thrower around here, and I can take the wings off a fly 30 yards.
Okay, excuse me, but I'm looking for someone.
Alucard?
Yes.
You should forget about him. I've got talent.
Listen, buddy, why don't you back up out of my face?
My sister's right. You are a piece of work.
Your sister?
Beatrice!
Oh, the bearded lady. What's her problem with me anyway? Why is she so protective of Alucard?
Us carnies stick together. We don't like outsiders sticking their nose in our business.
I just want to know what's going on here with Alucard.
Okay.
How does he perform such realistic tricks?
Now you hold on. I don't know nothing. Now you just. I gotta get back to practicing my knife throwing skills.
After that bizarre encounter, I found myself back at Alucard's trailer. The door to the trailer was unlocked and flung open when I knocked. He obviously wasn't there, so I decided to go in and snoop around. The inside was dim and musty. I left the door open to let what little sunlight the rest of the evening had to offer. At one end of the trailer was some kind of makeshift altar covered in candles and what I hoped were animal skulls. Next to it were shelves filled with unlabeled bottles and odd random ingredients inside them. One had spiders in it, another some kind of strange meat I didn't recognize. On his bookshelves were literature of the occult and spell books. What had I walked into? I was about to light a cigarette when I felt as if someone were watching me. I turned quickly with my back to the wall, but found no one. Still, I felt uneasy being there and wanted to get the hell out. I ran out of the trailer and bumped into Beatrice, the bearded lady.
What were you doing in here?
I was waiting for Alucard. None of your business.
What did I tell you?
Look, I don't like you or anyone else telling me what to do. If I want to see Alucard, it's none of your business.
I warned you one last time to leave here without seeing Alucard.
And I don't think you understand me. I'm not leaving here until I get what I want. I came here to sign Alucard, and all you've given me is a bunch of hogwash. Why can't I see Alucard?
I didn't want to have to tell you this, but you're so stubborn. Alucard's not well. He lost his mind many years ago. That doesn't disturb you?
It might, if I actually believed you.
What?
I don't think Alucard is insane. I think there's something else going on here. A man in my business meets every kind of person there is. The cheats, the phonies, the right guys, the bums.
So?
So? You developed an instinct about people. My instinct tells me Alucard is not insane. You have to try something better than that to scare me off.
You gotta stay away from Alucard. It's for your own good. Now I've warned you a second time.
Fine, Beatrice. I'll be on my way.
Goodbye, Mr. Weber. I hope we never meet again.
After I parted ways with Beatrice, I was determined to get to the bottom of this double talk about Alucard more than ever. This had become more important to me than just signing him. I wanted to know everything about him and his great and secret show. I sneaked my way over to the back of the tent where he had performed his act. No one was around, so I slipped in and found myself backstage amongst his props and costumes. Alucard was on stage this time, with the girl he had sawed in half from the night before. Obviously, she was a plant in the audience, in on his little illusion.
Can you please just kill me?
Maybe when I've grown bored of you. So what will it be tonight, Eve?
I don't care. Please just don't bring me back.
Oh, don't cry. Or maybe we'll have to go visit that daughter of yours. How old is she now? 44?
No. I'll do what you say.
My, how time flies when you're having fun.
I didn't understand what Eve was sobbing over, but I felt something was seriously wrong here. She had stepped away from Alucard. He gestured his hand in the air, and a group of swords resting at his feet began to levitate. He motioned the first one as it flew through the air, piercing Eve in the chest. She screamed and grabbed at it as blood poured from the wound. He motioned another sword, and this time the blade went through her mouth and out the back of her skull, silencing her screams. Alucard laughed in amusement as he penetrated this young girl's flesh with swords. I had never seen so much blood from such a petite girl. What kind of horrible trick was this? I was about to leave when I felt a heavy hand clench down on my shoulder and spin me around. Of course, it was the bearded lady. She looked angry and pushed me toward the front of the stage.
Look who was snooping around backstage.
Ah, Mr. Weber. You have a terrible knack for sticking your nose where it doesn't belong.
I only came back to change your mind about the job.
Well, I think you came back because you want to know more about me and my great and secret show.
Well, yes. I was only curious how you perform such realistic tricks.
I warned him to stay away.
It's okay. He was curious. And unfortunately, his curiosity will be his undoing.
Alucard had paced over to Eve and quickly removed the blade from her skull. She began screaming in pain.
You want to know how I perform such realistic tricks, huh?
Yes, I do.
Well, they're so realistic, Mr. Weber, because they are real.
What?
This carnival is over 100 years old, Mr. Weber, and I've been running it ever since we started taking admissions in 1873. Things were a lot different back in those days. People were a lot easier to entertain.
That's impossible. You can't be more than 60 years old.
It's impossible for you humans, but I've been around for centuries. Some men have known me as Mephistopheles, Nebris, Thoth, or even the devil himself. I only take the form of the man you know as Alucard.
I don't understand.
Alucard was a failed magician begging for coins by doing 2-bit magic tricks on the streets. He summoned me and made a deal for my knowledge. But every deal has a price, Mr. Weber.
What price?
Why, his soul, of course. Alucard died years ago, and I took his soul, as in the deal. But something fascinated me about you humans. Maybe it's the boredom of spending eternity in hell, but I decided to take over Alucard's body and remain here on Earth, feasting on your human fear. It's so delicious.
Why should I believe any of this? You're just teasing, trying to scare me off.
I have no reason to lie to you. Perhaps this will convince you.
He glared into my eyes, and I felt as if someone were gripping at my throat. I couldn't breathe. My body began lifting off the ground. I tried to grasp for air, but nothing came. His sideshow of freaks all watched as I struggled to catch my breath. His eyes were pitch black, and somehow I felt as if I were getting smaller, but that wasn't it at all. He was growing larger. His head touched the ceiling of the large tent, and this monstrous creature now towered over me. He no longer looked like a man at all, but a demon. I was paralyzed in his grip. I had never known such hell in my life. This creature was capable of evil I would never understand. I knew now everything he said was true. As if he could read my mind once I made such realization, he let go, and I fell to the stage, to my knees coughing.
Poor Joseph Will. Your greed has led you to me, just as it has many of men just like you. Now you too shall suffer until the stars burn out.
I made no deal with you.
No, but I can't let you go knowing what you know now. I'm afraid you are the newest member of my circus. Now get up. The next show starts in 15 minutes. You'll be my newest assistant.
Well, this is the end of my story, folks. I become just another freak in the cast of freaks in Alucard's show. Night after night, city after city, I'm cut in half, buried alive, or drowned for a sneering crowd who never will know the truth behind my horrible demise. Every night I die, and every night I'm brought back again. So if some night you find yourself strolling through the circus, eating your elephant ears and cotton candy, and you find yourself in front of Alucard's red and black tent, be sure to come in and catch his great and secret show.